I was like, Stan, you're right. With great power comes great responsibility.
Hmm.
And the opposite is also true. With great responsibility
Mm,
comes great power. When we take
yeah, yeah.
responsibility for something, we have great power to make things better.
Today's guest has made it his life's work to help people learn how to learn and tap into the full potential of their brain power and unleash their true genius by learning faster and living with a greater sense of power, productivity, and purpose. Jim Kwik is a world-renowned brain coach, the New York Times bestselling author of Limitless, over 1 million copies sold, and the host of the #1 brain performance podcast, Kwik Brain. He specializes in helping others optimize their learning and mental performance by sharpening their minds, enhancing their focus, and accelerating their learning. As a brain and memory trainer, Jim has worked with a variety of people: students, seniors, educators, athletes, political leaders, entrepreneurs, corporate clients such as Google, Nike, SpaceX, and institutions like the United Nations and Harvard. Today, we'll learn how Jim went from being a boy with a broken brain to the world's #1 brain coach, and hear his tips on how to recall, read, think, and learn faster, and ultimately unleash our true genius as well. So, everyone, get ready to take some notes and welcome Jim Quick to the Asian Boss Girl podcast.
Thank you
Woo!
so much. Yeah, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, Jim. As I shared, I have a mini show on our platform on wellness as well. And so brain health is something that I'm particularly excited to learn about from you. I just want to start from the top. And if we could just share with our listeners, anyone who may not already know, a bit of your background and your story. Jim, when you were 5 years old, you developed learning challenges after a traumatic brain injury. Can you share what happened and the significance of the boy with the broken brain and how this has led you to the purpose of your work today?
Thank you. My inspiration really was my desperation, and to get people, to go into the foreground. It helps to have some background. My parents immigrated to the States. My dad was 13 and unfortunately lost both his parents. Chinese, born in
Mm,
Jakarta. He was forced to come to the States to live with his aunt because he couldn't afford a whole lot there. And we lived in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at. Didn't have a lot of education or money or connections.
yeah.
But I had this impetus, the oldest of three siblings, and I just really
Mm,
wanted to be a good role model for my brother and my sister. And um, yeah, when I was 5 years old, I was in kindergarten class, and I had an accident where I had a very bad fall.
mm,
Uh, I was knocked unconscious, head injury, rushed to the emergency room, bleeding and all of that. My parents would say before I was very energized, very curious, very playful, as a
yeah.
5 year old would be. I became very shut down. I mean, I was
Mm,
naturally very introverted, but I became painfully shy. I just didn't
mm,
understand things the way other people understood them. I would have these migraines every day when I was
mm,
5 and 6, balance issues, coordination issues, poor focus, poor memory. Took me 3 years just to learn how to read like the other
mm,
kids with my injury, and that was very embarrassing. Self-esteem, a lot of self-doubt, lack of confidence. When I was 9 years old, I was slowing down a class and I was being teased pretty harshly because I just didn't understand the
yeah.
lesson,
Mm,
and I was being teased pretty bad. And the teacher came to my defense. She pointed to me in front of the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." And I
mm,
believe her intention was good, but all I remember was like, oh, I didn't know I had a broken brain. So
yeah,
adults
yeah.
have to be very careful with their external words because they
Mm-hmm.
often become a child's internal words. So every single time I did badly in school or wasn't picked for a team on sports, I would just say to myself, oh, because I have the broken brain. And
Yeah.
that self-talk really affected me because that label became my limit. And so I struggled every day. I would work hard because my parents instilled a very strong work ethic. I would work almost 2 or 3 times harder than the other kids, but I
Mm,
still was barely passing. And that happened every day through elementary school, through middle school, through junior high, through high school. When I was 18, I was fortunate enough to meet a mentor It was the father of a friend of mine, and he really showed me the potential of learning. And
Mm.
I started getting interested in the brain, adult learning theory, ancient mnemonics, like
Wow.
mentalists, magicians that did amazing things with their brain, speed reading, and so much more. And I started studying that, and kind of like 60 days into it, a light switch flipped on, and I started to understand things for the first time. And
Mm.
my grades improved, but everything improved after that. My self-esteem, my self-worth, and I couldn't help but help other people. And so let's see, I'm turning 51 this month. I've been doing this for 32 years. And so one of my very first students, she was a college freshman. She read 30 books in 30 days. Can you imagine that, Janet? Like
Oh my
not
gosh.
not skim or scam, but really read them. And I
Yeah.
wanted to find out not how. I know how.
Hmm.
I taught her how. I wanted to know why.
Hmm.
I would imagine a lot of your listeners, they know they should be doing certain things,
Right.
but
Yeah.
knowing what to do and doing what you know is a little different. And I
Yes.
found out that her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, was only given 60 days, 2 months to live. And the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life. And
Oh wow.
thoughts, prayers. 6 months later, I get a call from this young lady, and she's crying hysterically. And when she stops, I realize they're tears of joy that her
Hmm.
mother not only survived, but is really getting better. Doctors don't know how or why. The doctors are calling it a miracle,
Hmm.
but her mother attributed her recovery 100% to the great advice she got from her daughter, who learned it from all these books. And in
Hmm.
that moment, I realized two things. Number one, if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower, and it's a
Hmm.
superpower we all have. And we're not always taught how to use it, or how to access it.
Yeah.
Your brain doesn't come with an owner's manual, and school teaches you what to learn, like math, history, science, Spanish, but there are not a lot of classes on how to learn. No
Hmm.
classes called focus or concentration or memory, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The second thing I learned was my mission in life, which you described,
Hmm.
my purpose, which is being a slow learner, having a broken brain. I want people to learn faster and have their best, brightest brain possible. So really, it's no brain left behind. And so we
Yeah.
do that through speaking engagements. This past week, I was on 3 continents in one week, in front of a good 300,000 people live every year speaking. And we have a podcast approaching 400 episodes that we teach. And we also have the largest academy in the world on accelerated learning, students in 195 nations, that shows people how to access more of this incredible supercomputer between our ears. And yeah, I just want to build. I think you change your brain, you change your life. You change your brain, you could change the entire world.
Yeah. Ah, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Jim. It really is incredible to see the work that you're doing, and I love that statement that you said where most of our listeners probably like we know what we should be doing, but the getting yourself to do it is the challenge. And I think a lot of that is the gap that you identified, which is we go to school and you're given information, but learning how to learn is really the tool that is so critical that a lot of education lacks. And it's something that I grew up. My dad also said. He always said, schoolwork is important, but learning how to learn is the thing that is the challenge that you should be trying to figure out to master.
Wise words, wise man.
Hi, ABGs. I want to share my summertime skincare secret weapon. One of the products that I have in my rotation is OneSkin's face topical supplement and their eye topical supplement. I am a big fan of this duo because it's only 2 steps and very effective. All of their products are created by skin longevity scientists and backed by lab and clinical studies. They have this thing called the OS01 peptide, which targets the zombie cells that cause lines, wrinkles, and sagging skin. And it's scientifically proven to reverse skin's biological age at the cellular level. For a limited time, our listeners will get an exclusive 15% off their first OneSkin purchase using the code ABG when you check out at oneskin.co. As summer heats up, give your skin the UV protection, hydration, and cellular support it needs with OneSkin. One of the biggest reasons why I love OneSkin is that they treat the root cause of aging versus just the symptoms. With only 2 steps, I was skeptical, but it really is effective. OneSkin is more than skincare, it is about skin longevity, targeting the root causes of aging to help you look and feel your best at every age. Get started today with 15% off using code ABG at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code ABG. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. It's time to expect more from your skincare routine. Invest in the health of your skin with OneSkin. I resonate, and I think a lot of our listeners resonate with your story of having parents who are immigrants. And I'm curious, how did your cultural background shape your approach to overcoming your early learning challenges?
I mean, there's a lot of compelling forces. I mean, part of it was cultural for sure, coming here, not speaking the language. Um, there's only one other Asian in my school system. He was
Mm,
a year older, and his name's Roger. He had a perfect SAT. He scored a 1590
ah,
on his SATs. Was so upset he took it again to score a perfect score. He was
mm,
head of the debate team, head of the math team, and I think it sent a cognitive bias for our school because the
yeah.
teachers, I don't know, at some point thought I would be doing the same,
Hmm.
but I was on the opposite side of the bell curve, and I really, really, really struggled. And I was awkward, in that way. But yeah, I mean, my family's parents are they're not the wealthiest people or the most health conscious people. They've never had a green juice or they don't do yoga or meditation. But they're just really good people,
Yeah.
and they work really hard. My mom, to put us through, just had multiple jobs. I mentioned we live in the back of a laundromat of one of her jobs. They instilled a sense of responsibility and
Hmm.
kindness and discipline. Again, they're very introverted, so I think I inherited a lot of that.
Mm,
It's just introverted, but then after my accident, I became painfully shy, which is
hmm.
this awkwardness of just not feeling like you're enough or you fit in.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge. But they were they wanted me to do well, but they were also very understanding and patient. So I really do believe that anything good that I've done came from them, and anything that I'm not doing so good, is on my shoulders. And
Ah, the way you're describing them, they remind me a lot of my parents too, instilling hard
mhm,
work and recognizing that, like I grew up in a neighborhood where I was not around a lot of Asian people. And
mhm,
yeah, a lot of the people that were Asian were very high achieving, and sometimes that can put a lot of pressure on an individual. But it sounds like your parents did an amazing job of instilling these incredible traits in you. And I think hard work definitely I haven't, there's no way you've gotten where you have been today without that. So, the work that you do, you talk about this thing called the Limitless Model. Can
mhm.
you share with us around the Limitless Model and what the three M's are?
So Limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless
Mm,
is about advancing and progressing beyond what you're currently doing or what you believe is possible. The opposite of limitless is being limited. And so actually, let's make this real personal for all of us. Like everybody listening, think about an area where you feel limited. Where do you feel like you're stuck?
mm,
Where do you feel like you're contained in maybe imagine a box or a cube? Where are you not making progress? Is it your income, your impact, your personal self-worth, your reading speed, your memory is
mm,
limited, your focus is limited? Where do you feel like you're stuck? And that box, by definition, is three-dimensional, right? The three forces that contain that box, these are the same three forces that will liberate you out of that box, give you freedom. And I call it the limitless model. The three forces are three M's:
mm,
your mindset, your motivation, and the methods. So if you imagine a Venn diagram, three intersecting circles,
mm,
so like maybe two ears and a face, like Mickey Mouse. The face would be the methods. And everybody wants to know, how do you read faster? How do you improve your focus? How do you remember
mm,
names, faces, give speeches without notes, all the things that we train. And again, a lot of people can know the methods for anything, and losing weight or making money or social media marketing,
mm,
reading faster, but they're not doing it because I realize you have to address the mindset and motivation also as well.
mm,
So to break it down, mindset for me is a starting point. That it's really hard to create a positive life with a negative mind.
mm,
So at events that I mentioned, sometimes if there's time, I'll do a demonstration where we'll pass around a microphone to the audience, and maybe 100 people will introduce themselves,
mm,
and I'll memorize all their names.
mm,
Right. But I always tell people I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's possible. Because
mm,
the truth is, every single one of your people in your community, they can do that too, regardless of their age, their background, their career, education level, financial situation, gender, history, IQ. It's just we weren't taught. And so my mission is to fill in those gaps in school and our professional development. Um, at these same events, people invariably in the lobby pull me aside in secret and say, Jim, I know you're a memory coach. I have a horrible memory.
Yeah.
And or I'm too old, or I'm not smart. And I always say, Stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Mm.
You fight for your limits, that they're yours. Your brain is this incredible supercomputer. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your self-talk is the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names,
Hmm.
you won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not that you have a negative thought and ruins your life any more than if you ate a donut, it won't ruin your life. But if you eat that donut 50 times a day,
Mm.
every single day, then there will be a consequence,
Right,
right?
right.
Same thing with those negative thoughts. So even if you find yourself saying, I don't have a great memory, being self-aware is a starting point for any kind of change. Just add a little word at the end, like yet. I don't have a great memory yet. And it just
Mm.
opens, it just feels different, right? It lands
Yeah.
different. It opens up possibility and potential. So the mindset, three things I would highlight for all of us,
Hmm.
things like what you believe is possible, what you believe you're capable of, what you believe you deserve. And so you could learn a great method for making money, for
Hmm.
example. But if your mindset is money is the root of all evil, I have to hurt people in order to
Mm.
make money, you're still going to be stuck in that box, right? Because you're
Right,
only going to be
right,
able to achieve what you believe is, because all behavior is belief driven. In order
right.
to create a new result, you need a new behavior. In order to do that new behavior, you need a belief that says that's possible. And then if you want to get really raw, that you deserve it, because we have this internal thermostat in terms of what we believe we deserve in a
Hmm.
relationship, in terms of our personal energy, health,
Hmm.
vibrancy, and also, how smart we are. And then somebody could have a limitless mindset and even have the great methods for reading faster, focus, all the things that's in my book, but they have no motivation. So they're stuck in that
Mm.
box because they're not motivated to get out of that box. And here are three keys for limitless motivation. This is to motivate yourself to do the things you need to do,
Hmm.
or if you want to motivate somebody else to do something, to invest in your startup, to buy your product, to your kids to clean their room. The formula for limitless motivation is the letter P times the letter E times S3.
Are you feeling the pressure to buy a home versus rent? People sometimes throw shade on renting, calling it a bad long term deal. But what if I told you that with Built Rewards, your rent money isn't just paying the landlord, it is secretly plotting to fund your future dream home? Built's got the inside scoop on turning your rent into a legit investment in your home ownership journey. Built is breaking ground as the first rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Even if you're still rocking the old school rent check vibes, Built Rewards has got your back. They will mail the check for you. It is like having a personal rent paying assistant. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. Or use your points to sweat it out. Redeem your points to book fitness studio classes. You can also use your points toward a future rent payment or toward a future down payment on a home. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built Points has been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/abg. That's joinbilt.com/abg. Make sure to use our URL so that they know that we sent you. Join built.com/abg to start earning points with your rent payments today.
P times E times S3. So let's unpack that real quick. Let's say if people seen photos of me on social media, we're connected there, and they see me with Richard Branson or Elon or Oprah, people invariably want to know how we met, how we connected. And I'll tell you, we bonded over our love of learning, a love of reading, right? Because leaders are readers. If somebody has, and this is also the best exercise for your brain. Reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body. But they are successful because they read a lot. They're feeding their minds new information. Because today, the faster you learn, the faster you earn. Knowledge today is not only power, knowledge is profit. And your brain is your number one wealth building asset. It doesn't come with an owner's manual. That's why we wrote Limitless and we have our podcast. Because when you understand how your brain works, you could work your brain a whole lot better. So let's say you want to read more,
Mhm.
but you're not motivated to do so. The P is purpose. meaning you have to have a reason to get the result. And it can't be intellectual. Everyone knows intellectually why they should read or exercise or whatever, meditate. But if they're not doing it, it has to go from your head to your heart,
Mm-hmm.
then to your hands. You could set goals and KPIs and visualize what you want in your head, but if you're not acting with your hands, you're not motivated. Check in with the second H, which is your heart, the symbol of emotion. Because we're not logical, but we are biological. You
Mm-hmm.
think about dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, these neurotransmitters, we're like this chemical feeling soup. And so, for an example, to illustrate this, exercise is incredible for your brain. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably the most researched thing that you could do for the brain health. When you exercise, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, B, D, and F.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it? It's like fertilizer for neuroplasticity. It's like fertilizer for your brain. But if you're not exercising each day, you know intellectually you should do it, but if you're not, you're not feeling it. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, a couple of years ago, I saw somebody in my neighborhood that I recognized,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't place the person. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, right?
Yeah, it
But
happens
it's
to me all the
hard
time.
for me, the pressure as a memory coach, I have to remember a
Mm.
lot. But when he opened up his mouth and I heard his voice, I knew exactly who it was. But I
Mm.
didn't recognize him because he looked completely different than the last time I saw him years before. I mean, he looked fit, he looked younger, he had this glow. The backstory is this person was incredibly unhealthy.
Mm.
He was overweight, he smoked, he did all these things. And I was like, what are you doing? What's your
Mm-hmm.
secret? He was like, it's no secret. It's like, I'm doing this, 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 and this. I'm like, well, me and our friends, mutual friends, we've been telling you that for years and you didn't do any of that. He's like, yeah, but I came back from a business trip and I found my daughter crying at home hysterically.
Ah.
And she had this dream that he died, right?
Mm.
And after he heard that, he found purpose.
Mm.
And that was the emotional impetus for him to make those positive changes. So, in order to motivate yourself or somebody else, you have to have a purpose, a drive. You have to start with
Mm.
that why, right?
Yeah.
But somebody could have limitless purpose and still not be motivated because they lack the second part, which is E. E stands for energy.
Mm.
We have an 18-month-old, and it's like he's teething. He's not sleeping very well through the night.
Ah.
If you're exhausted, you're not going to be very motivated to work
Mm.
out or to read that book. If you get a big processed meal and you're in a food coma, you're not going to be motivated to clean your room or study, doing the things you need to do.
Right.
So there's a whole section in Limitless where we talk about the things that will give you mental energy. What are the
Mm.
best brain foods? What are the best supplements? How do you optimize your sleep? Right. And then finally, you could have limitless purpose and limitless energy and still not be motivated. Because I realize sometimes we're not motivated because we're intimidated. Like maybe that thing is
Mm.
just too big. It's out of our realm of possibility, or it's not in our normal routine, or maybe it's confusing. And a confused mind, guess what? Doesn't do anything.
Mm.
And so the S3 stands for small, simple steps. And I hope this is a big takeaway for people. It's common sense, but it's not common practice. That maybe going to the gym 3 times a week is too big of a jump.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a small, simple step, put on your running shoes,
Mm.
right? We on our podcast recently had one of the top biological dentists talking about what you could do for oral health, for good brain health,
Mm-hmm.
beyond brushing. It was oil pulling and tongue scraping. And when we talked to flossing, if you can't get your kids to floss, maybe that's too big.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe floss one tooth. Or
Ah.
we know leaders are readers. If you want to read 30 minutes a day and you're not doing it, maybe it's too intimidating. A small, simple step, open up the book. Read one
Mm.
line in the book. Nobody's going to stop at one tooth, flossing one tooth. They're
Right.
going to do the rest. They're not going to stop at one line in the book.
Mm.
And inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's just too hard. So I
Yeah.
think consistency compounds and it allows you to create that momentum with very little friction. And the takeaway is this. I ask myself this one question 10 times a day. Whenever I feel limited, I feel stuck,
Mm.
I feel intimidated, I ask myself, what is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? What is the
Mm.
tiniest action I could take right now, operative word now,
Right.
that will get me closer to this goal where I can't fail? And then you'll get your S3, your small,
Mm-hmm.
simple step.
I like that. Yeah, I definitely resonate with, whenever I'm trying to make some sort of behavior change, it can feel overwhelming when you're trying to do it all at once. But the tip of looking at the simplest, smallest thing that you can do will get you started. So definitely thank you for that.
To all my wonderful parents and caregivers out there, let's talk about those unforgettable moments with your little ones. The first steps, the giggles, the boundless energy. But let's be real, with a growing and wild child, those moments can also mean unexpected messes, which is why I'm excited to share something that's been a lifesaver for us, Pampers Cruisers 360. Pampers Cruisers 360 is the must-have baby-proof diaper. These slide on like a pair of pants, unlike ordinary diapers with tabs or tapes that your escape artist can rip off. And trust me, thanks to its 360-degree stretchy waistband, it can help save you from some serious messes and keep your baby comfy. With up to 100% leak-proof protection, you can let your little one explore and play. And when it's time for a change, it's as easy as ripping the sides, rolling it up with a disposable tape on the back, and you're done. Simple as that. Try Pampers Cruisers 360 with the new Pampers Free and Gentle wipes for healthy baby skin. They're made from 100% plant-based cloth that grips the mess. With Free and Gentle, mess meets its match. Let your little one live wild and mess-free because every adventure should end in smiles, not cleanups. For trusted protection, trust Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand.
What advice do you have for people who want to improve their learning abilities? And does your advice change based off of someone's age and also if they're like a student versus a professional?
So the techniques, far and wide, are applicable for any age or stage of life. What I would say is here are four very easy, simple things to do to learn anything faster. And again, I think it's the most important skill, learning how to learn. Because
Mm,
if you can learn how to learn, think what that means. If you're a good learner, you could focus, you could concentrate, you could
mhm,
remember, you could process, read faster, understand, think. What can you apply that to? Anything, right? Everything gets easier. You could apply
mhm,
that towards medicine or money or
mm,
martial arts or music or Mandarin or what everything gets easier when you can learn how to learn. I think an individual's ability to learn rapidly and translate that learning into action is the ultimate competitive advantage today because we
yeah.
live in the millennium of the mind, right? And so, four quick things to learn faster. Actually, let's make it an acronym, FAST, F-A-S-T.
Yeah.
So let's say everyone think about a subject or a skill they want to get better at. The F stands for forget, which is weird coming out of the mouth of a memory coach. But what I mean by that is sometimes we don't learn because we feel like we know it.
Mhm,
You go to a personal development or a class on, something, sales or whatever, and you feel like you know it, then your cup is full, right? So it helps to
mhm,
temporarily empty your cup so you can put something new in
yeah.
because the amount of information now is doubling at dizzying speeds and the half-life gets shorter and shorter means a lot of information is outdated, based on new research and new ideas. And
Mm,
so I would say a starting point is forget what you know temporarily so you could
mhm,
be open to something. Like your mind is like a parachute.
yeah.
It only works when it's open, right?
Mm,
The other thing I would say to forget, and this is a big one for listeners, forget about distractions. And I know it's easy to
mm,
say, harder to do,
mhm,
but I would imagine this, Jen. You multitask to keep up, and you have to
mhm,
do a lot of things. A lot of people have to juggle a lot of things with their roles and responsibility. And the science is saying we're not actually multitasking.
mm,
Multitasking is a myth. What we're
mm,
doing more accurately is something called task switching.
mhm,
And it costs us three things that's disrupting our productivity, our performance, our our profitability, and
mm,
definitely our peace of mind. Number one, it costs you time. So when people multitask thinking they're to save time or create time, you're actually losing time. Because if you're
mm,
focused on one thing and then you focus on another thing, you're multitasking, you that it could take 5 or 10 minutes to regain your focus.
right,
So you're
right.
losing time. The second thing is we train a lot of the world's top doctors. And we
Mhm,
know surgeons that try to multitask during operations, they'll
oh,
make more surgical errors. I mean,
yeah.
think about multitasking like driving and texting. There's going to be more accidents.
Right, right.
So not only does multitasking does it lead to loss of time, but you also make more mistakes. And the third reason to monotask versus
Mhm,
multitask is it costs you energy, meaning
mm,
that if you're doing an activity like we're doing right now, your brain and my brain, there's a certain cognitive web that's lit up,
Mm-hmm.
imagine, to do this activity. If you're going to try to do something else, it takes more blood glucose, more energy
Mm.
to be able to restart something new, right? And
Right,
so if
right.
you feel like throughout the day you have these dips in energy, or you feel this wave of mental fatigue, maybe you have too many tabs open. And
Mm-hmm.
even if they're minimized on your computer, it's still using up energy and memory and everything else.
Right.
And so you have to be very, clear about your resources. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I want to, the bottom line for this is you forget about what you know, you forget about distractions,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll help you to focus on one thing. The A in FAST as an acronym, the F is forget, the A is active.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is not like life is not a spectator sport. And what we've learned about the human brain, we've discovered more about probably the past 20 years than the previous 2000 years combined, is first of all, we're grossly estimating our own capabilities. But secondly, your brain is not fixed like your shoe size. It could grow
Mm-hmm.
through neuroplasticity. Your brain grows through novelty and nutrition. And
Mm.
just like your muscles, if you go, you want to build more muscles, you give it novelty, you give it some exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and then you feed that muscle with essential amino acids and proteins and everything else to grow. Same thing with your mental muscles also
Mm-hmm.
as well. But it requires you to be active because the brain doesn't learn best. This is interesting. The brain doesn't learn best through consumption. It actually learns better through creation and
Mm.
co-creation. So it's harder. It's not a teacher's responsibility to push information inside your head
Mm-hmm.
as much as it is for you to pull it out.
Mm.
And so, but it requires you to take responsibility. Meaning, years ago, I had two friends that wanted to meet each other. It was Richard Branson and Stan Lee. Now,
Mm.
Stan Lee is the creator of all these Marvel superheroes, right? And
Yeah.
I have an affinity for superheroes because I couldn't read, and how I taught myself how to read was reading comic books. Like when my parents
Oh.
thought I was sleeping, I'd be underneath the covers with my
Yeah.
flashlight, and something about the art, the illustration, it just brought the words to life, and that's how I taught myself
Mm.
how to read. And I go to pick them up, and I'm in the car, and I asked Stan, I was like, I just need to know, like, you've created the X-Men and Avengers, Fantastic Four. Who's your favorite? And
Mm.
he says, Jim, my favorite superhero is Iron Man. And he says, Jim, who's your favorite superhero? And I posted this picture on Facebook, Instagram. In the car, he had a Spider-Man tie going to dinner. And I was like,
Mm.
so I had to say Spider-Man. And without a pause in his iconic Stanley voice, he goes, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And we've all heard that. And truth be told, I had three head injuries before age 12. Sometimes I reverse things when I read or when I hear them. And I heard something different. I was like, Stan, you're right. With great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite is also true. With great
Mm.
responsibility comes great power. When we take
Yeah, yeah.
responsibility for something, we have great power to make things better. And I think being active, the A in fast, is the personal agency that everything is figure outable
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's there to save us and that we could do this, right?
Mm.
And how can you be more active in your learning? You could take notes, you could ask questions, you could do these exercises that we teach. Because I feel like we don't know it unless we could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What you hear, there's the Chinese proverb that says, what you hear, you forget, what you see, you remember, and what
Mm.
you do, you understand.
Ah,
And
yes.
you could read a book on push-ups, but if you're not actually doing those push-ups, your life is no different, right?
Right, right.
And you're no better off than someone who's illiterate, who couldn't even read that book to begin with. So I think it's a lie that by itself, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge has the potential to be a lot of power. It only comes power when we act on that knowledge.
Mm.
So how can you be more active? Even right now, people could turn this into a masterclass and take notes. That's a way of being more active.
Right, right.
The S and B in FAST stands for state. And this is a big
Mm.
one. When I say state, I mean your mood, your emotion, a snapshot of your emotional mood of your mind and your
Mm.
body. The key to a long-term memory and why it's important is I believe in life, in our careers, in school, two of the most costly words are, I forgot. I mean, think about the
Mm.
consequences of saying, I forgot to do it. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot that conversation. I forgot where I put it. I forgot to go to that meeting. I forgot that name. It's a slippery slope where you lose time and trust. You
Mm-hmm.
get hurt a relationship. On the other side, memory can make you money. And I don't just mean
Mm.
financial, that's obvious. When you can remember names and faces, client information, product information, give speeches without notes, all the things that we teach, remember what you read, you're just going to have an advantage, clear advantage,
Mhm.
right? But when we're talking about state, to have a long-term memory, the key is information by itself is forgettable, but information combined with emotion becomes unforgettable. So that's the
Mm.
emotional state. And you don't want to learn something in a bored state because most people, if they're
Mm.
reflecting back on, I don't know, high school, what was the emotion you felt mostly sitting in
Yeah,
class? Most people
bored.
felt bored,
Yeah.
right? So if it's emotion time and boredom on a scale of 0 to 10 is a zero. So if it's
Mm.
information times emotion becomes your long-term memory, and the emotion is boredom and zero, anything times zero
Mhm.
is zero. So people forgot, they wonder why they forgot the periodic table,
Right,
right?
right.
Because there was no emotional impetus. Bruce Lee, talks about, emotional context and, the power of bringing emotions and expressing. And so being state, all learning is state dependent, never learn something in a bored state.
Mm.
And going back to responsibility, who's responsible for how we feel, right? Is it
Mm.
politics? Is it the weather? I mean, certainly, I think the difference that makes the difference, I'll use the analogy of a thermometer versus a thermostat. Like, think
Mm.
about what a thermometer does. Its only function, a thermometer reacts to the environment. If in your room you have a thermometer, the only thing it's doing is reacting to whatever the environment's giving it.
Mhm.
A thermostat doesn't do that though. Like sometimes we react, human beings, we react as a thermometer. We react to politics, we react to how people treat us, we react to bad weather or whatever. But the people that I find that are successful are definitely more fulfilled. They have a level of agency where a thermostat doesn't react to the environment. A thermostat knows the temperature, it gauges, it knows what's going on in the world and in its world. But what does a thermostat do that's different than a thermometer? It sets a temperature, and what happens to the environment? The environment reacts to it.
Mm.
And I feel like leadership is taking that invisible and making it visible. That it's not that you'll believe it when you see it. Maybe it's you'll see it when you start believing it. Because you
Mm.
set a temperature, a standard, a goal, a vision, whatever it is, and then the environment shapes itself around that. And for me, I think the most important thing to be responsible for is how we feel. Like we have a to-do list. Everybody has a
Mhm.
to-do list. I would challenge everybody to start tomorrow with a to-feel list.
Mm.
Like, what are three feelings you want to cultivate that day? Like, often when we're in a difficulty or demand, or maybe a conflict with a loved one or at work, you ask yourself, what do I need to say? What do I need
Mhm.
to do? I would pause. And before you ask those questions, ask yourself, who do I need to be?
Mm.
Like, what do I need to feel? Maybe if your feeling or your being is, I want to be compassionate, the saying and the doing kind of takes care of itself, right? Organically. And so having that to feel list, I think is very important. And we don't have feelings, we do them, right? There's
Mhm.
just like you don't have memories, there's this three-stage process for memorizing something. You don't have focus, there's a process for focusing.
Mm.
And so when you take the nouns in your life and you turn them into verbs, like what I think the core of this conversation is about, it's about transcending,
Mhm.
ending the trance. Right. Maybe it's mass hypnosis through marketing or media that you're broken, you're not enough, right? Or it's self-hypnosis, the words we're saying to ourselves. You wake up and say, I don't have creativity, I don't have motivation, I don't have energy, I don't have a great memory. These aren't things you have, a noun, they're verbs.
Mm.
So you don't have energy, you do it. There's a
Mhm.
process for generating energy, good
Yeah.
foods and sleep and stress management and so on. So, what we've done is taken those nouns and we turn it into a process, just like motivation. You don't have motivation, you need purpose, energy, small, simple steps,
Right.
right? And so that's the S is state. Like right now, everybody sit the way you be sitting or stand the way you be standing if you are very interested and motivated and excited about this conversation. Like do that now. Now, my question is, why do you even have to move, right? But some
Mm.
people will sit up, right? They'll lean forward because they know their physiology affects their psychology.
Mhm.
So if you up the emotion a little bit, you're going to remember more. And then finally, the T in fast stands for teach. I
Mm.
think one of the best, this is the Feynman method. If you want to learn something, teach it to somebody else. And I think it's the best way to learn
Mm.
something, right? If somebody had to give a TEDx talk next week on some of the gems they learned in this conversation, would they focus better? Of
Mm.
course, right? Would they concentrate? Would they take better notes? Would they ask more questions online on social media and so on? Of course they would, right? Because they would own that information. So it's in science, they call it the explanation effect. When
Mm.
you learn something with the intention of explaining to somebody else, you'll learn it better. So those are
Mm.
just four tips to, people can lean into to be able to learn a new subject or maybe a new skill, which
Yeah.
gives them a big advantage.
Yeah, those are great. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Another question around improving our brain health. For a lot of our listeners, we, have aging parents. What tips do you have for us for how we can help them maintain or improve their brain health?
So when I was 7, I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's.
Mm.
It was tough because she would call me by my father's name. And I'm going through
Oh.
my learning difficulties at 5, 6. She would repeat something she just said 30 minutes ago.
Mm.
We actually, for my book Limitless, we donated all the proceeds to charity,
Mhm.
to nonprofits, building schools all around the world in Asia, Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya. Also, Alzheimer's research for women in memory of my grandmother. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men.
Mm.
And most of the research is done on male brains and treatment on male brains. So we wanted to fund research, uh, understanding why women, experience these things in memory of my grandmother. So it's something that's very personal to me. When I
Yeah.
speak at those institutions you mentioned, let's say I'm speaking at Harvard or the Cleveland Clinic,
Mhm.
um, our book was endorsed by the founding director of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Brain Health. We know that about 1/3 of your brain, including your memory, is predetermined by genetics,
Mm.
biology, but 2/3 is in our influence and control.
Mm.
And so, some people say that you, for Alzheimer's, that your genetics loads the gun, but it's your lifestyle that will fire it. And
Mm.
so there are 10 things that will move the needle when it comes to taking care of your brain, even when you age.
Mhm.
And it gets actually, a lot of these could actually stave off brain aging challenges. And so, in no particular order, I'll give you rapid fire the 10. All I ask is people write them down so they
Mhm.
remember it. And then rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. How much energy and effort, attention did you put on this tip in the past 7 days? All
Mm.
right. So, number one, a good brain diet. What you eat matters, especially for your gray matter. A whole
Mhm.
area of science we write about called neuronutrition, that there's certain foods that are very neuroprotective and good for your brain. Things like avocados, blueberries. I like to call them brain berries. Broccoli, olive oil, if your diet allows eggs, the choline in eggs
Mhm.
leads to acetylcholine, which is really good for cognitive health. Green leafy vegetables. You need your omega-3s, your DHAs, so you can get them through flax seeds, salmon, sardines, turmeric. The active ingredient is curcumin, which helps to lower inflammation in the body.
Mm.
Walnuts, amazing brain snack, high in vitamin E, very neuroprotective, and probably everyone's favorite, dark chocolate, right?
Mm.
So on a scale of 0 to 10, how many of those brain foods are you incorporating? 10 being the best,
Mm.
because what will lower the score? Highly processed foods, chemicals that could affect, your nervous system, foods that you can't read the label, you don't know what these things are, high sugar that spikes your glucose, and mess with your insulin resistance. So on a scale of 0 to 10, the past 7 days. Number two, the second thing that would be helpful for brain aging and for all of us is killing ants. So killing ants is actually clinically proven to be good for your brain, and that's an
Mm.
acronym. Ants are automatic negative thoughts. That's what ANT stands for, automatic negative thoughts. We talked about this, right? Just kind of reframing our inner dialogue. Maybe I don't have great
Mhm.
memory, haven't heard yet, right? On a scale of 0 to 10, how encouraging are your thoughts? Because thoughts become actions and feelings, right? The third key to a better brain as we age, exercise. And we all know this, right? But I don't mean just going to CrossFit or Pilates 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, how much are you moving throughout the day?
Mhm.
Right? We're behind screens. They say sitting is the new smoking. And your brain, the primary reason you have a brain is to control your movement. And as your body moves, your brain grooves.
Mm.
And so again, you create those BDNF, the fertilizer for your brain. And even working, I'll work for an hour and I'll take a 5-minute brain break to move, to hydrate, because your brain is, in our podcast, we had a neuronutritionist And she was also, it's great food prep. She was talking about if you're just dehydrated 2%, it could affect your cognitive health and your cognitive performance. And staying hydrated, everyone, could boost your reaction time, your thinking speed upwards of 30%.
Mm.
So, very, very powerful. But on this, when we're looking at this, how well are we taking care of our movement? And, so I think it's very important to get your steps in and do the things because it's so good for your brain. Number four is brain supplements, meaning I prefer people get it from food, but
Hmm.
there's also a different category called nootropics that there are substances that have been shown in studies, human studies, to enhance focus, memory, executive functioning, mood, and brain energy.
Mm.
Right. And so, we talk about a lot there. People could get a list of all the supplements. We make them for free brainnutrition.com. If you go to brainnutrition.com, you could see 30 of the most researched ingredients that could help boost your brain power. Number five, positive peer group. This is a big
Mm.
one. We had a doctor on who's runs the largest study of happiness and longevity at Harvard, and it's been going on for decades. And he says exercise good, diet's good. What really moves the needle is your peers. It's not just your neurological networks, it's your social networks.
Mm.
And we know who we spend time with is who we become. And the reason why is because we have these mirror neurons, mirror like a reflection, and that means we imitate the people we spend the most time with unconsciously.
Mm.
Well, I always tell people watch, WATCH, a lot of acronyms here for you to remember. The W are words. We start using the same words and language as the people around us. The A in watch, actions. We start to behave as people around us. The T are our thoughts. We start having the same thoughts and think the same way as people around us. The
Mm.
C is our character. We start having the same moral compass as the standards as the people
Mm.
around us. And the H are habits. And I believe first you create your habits and your habits create you.
Mm.
Whether you smoke or not has less to do with your biology and more do your friends smoke because you're more likely to smoke, right? Or do drugs or crime or study or exercise, if that's what the people. So on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best, how encouraging, kind, are the people in your peer group? Because we know you could have an energy vampire, it could steal your dreams, your drive, and not so good for your brain.
Mm.
That's number five. Number six is a clean environment is good for your brain. And I think everyone knows this. Like you clean off your desk, you make your bed, you maybe you're on your screen, you put everything in the right on your computer in the right file. Your external world is a reflection of your internal world.
Hmm.
It gives you clarity of thought. And not just clean environment, like you want to absolutely Marie Kondo your mind, but also like air quality. Right? Like there's so much toxins, neurotoxins in things like candles and perfumes. And you buy new carpet or furniture, there's this off-gassing, right? Mold, all these things that contribute to not so good of a brain. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how clean is your environment? Number seven is a big one, sleep. I
Mm.
mean, when you get a bad night's sleep, how's your brain the next day? How's your
Yeah,
focus?
yeah.
How's your ability to study? How's your concentration? How's your ability to solve problems? And so, it's important to maximize your sleep. When you sleep is where you consolidate short to long-term memory. So if you have long-term memory issues, check your sleep. It's also where you clean out the beta amyloid plaque, those proteins that can lead to brain aging challenges. So when you sleep, the sewage system in your brain kicks in. And so very important. My favorite sleep tips, and I'm curious, Ann, how's your sleep in general?
I struggle with sleep a bit. I've shared that with our listeners. I know it's a big and important thing, but yeah, I'd love any tips that you might have for how to
Yeah,
improve sleep.
get direct sunlight first thing in the morning, even if it's
Mm.
for 5 minutes. So your eyes are the only part of your brain that's outside of your skull. And so if you can get outside, even if it's hazy or foggy, it helps to reset what they call your circadian rhythm. This is a 24-hour clock that you have, and you'll sleep better at night. Not through a window light, because the window could filter out certain spectrum of the light, but just getting outside, even for 5 minutes. Number two, I'm very sensitive to caffeine, so I can't do caffeine past noon because it
Mm.
could stay in your system for 10 hours plus. And so be, mindful of that. Number three, if you have an alarm to wake up, I suggest you also use that same alarm to go to sleep. We've
Mm,
learned through research that your brain loves structure, even on the weekends. And no one does this perfect. I certainly don't. But if you could go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, even on
mm,
weekends and days off, you'll get better sleep overall. And then two things to think about. We would know it would be time to sleep. Let's say it's thousands of years ago. We're hunter-gatherers. We would know because the environment would tell you, because there would be a decrease in two environmental factors. It would get darker
mm,
and it would get cooler. And we generally sleep better in a darker, cooler environment. Cooler, not so it's so cold you're shivering because that'll wake you up. But if you take a warm bath and you maybe it has some Epsom salt, the magnesium you absorb transdermally helps you relax. It's a signal when you get out of that bath, though, your core body temperature will drop
mm,
if you're in a sauna, shower, and that is a signal to create melatonin, which is the hormone that helps you relax and sleep.
mm,
Also, when it comes to light, you could have dark room blackout curtains. And they've done studies where even if they put a little like red light, like a little like flashlight behind your knee when you're sleeping, it could wake you up because you have photoreceptors on your body too.
mm.
So really getting as dark as possible. You know what the culprit is? Our screens. So many
Yeah,
people
yeah.
before they go to bed, they're watching TV or they're on their iPad or they're on their phone. The screen illuminates this blue light and it tricks your mind into thinking it's still daylight.
Mm,
So I'm a big advocate for not touching your phone the last hour of the day. And I think it's better to keep the phone in the bathroom, not by your nightstand, because you have
mm.
this impetus to kind of grab it.
Right,
But what could be hurting you in your sleep is, first of all, you could scroll forever. So it's all that doom scrolling and all
right.
that content could be stimulating, depending
Hmm.
on the news and whatever. But also the light itself could be harmful
Mm,
and mess with your circadian sleep rhythms. So that's sleep. And then finally, 8, 9, and 10, the eighth thing you can do for a better brain is protect your brain. Um, I had 3 brain injuries before the age of 12. Wear a helmet, right? On a scale
mm,
of 0 to 10, how well are you protecting your brain? Avoid extreme sports. Make sure your kids are, protected. Number 9, big one, new learnings.
mm,
So, talk about aging. There was a longevity study. It was on the cover of Time magazine, and they took a community of nuns and they were living 80, 90, and above. And the researchers wanted to find out, well, why are they living so long? They said half of it was their faith, emotional gratitude, but the
mm,
other half, they were lifelong learners. They're studying every day. They're having deep conversations, debates every day. They were the two dips we see in cognitive decline usually is when people graduate school,
mhm,
because some people associate learning with education, meaning like, oh, my education's done, so my learning is
mm.
done. And your brain is like, use it or lose it.
Yeah.
And then when
Mm,
people retire, they often don't use their mind in the same way. And that deteriorates and their body is not far behind. So
mm,
this study was called Aging with Grace. People could look it up, but just new learnings. You have a to-do list. I highly suggest you have a to learn list.
mm.
Like what do you want to constantly learn? Because remember, novelty and nutrition is how you build your physical muscles, but
Mhm.
same thing with your mental muscles. You need
Yeah.
that novelty. And then finally, the last one, stress management.
Mm,
10 at scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best. How well are you coping with stress? Research shows chronic stress will shrink your brain.
mm,
And so how are you mitigating that stress? For me, a walk with the dogs,
yeah.
right? Meditation, body work. When you're in fight or flight or freeze, you're in your survival brain and it holds you hostage from like the things like your
Mm,
executive functioning, your problem solving ability, and all these other things. And so on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best, how well are you coping with stress? So everybody wants to know what the magic pill is for a better memory or better brain. There's no
right.
pill, but there is a process. There's
Yeah.
always a method behind, what looks like magic. And me being, in my 50s now, I have the best brain I've ever had, even beyond my 20s and 30s. And it's just, we aren't
Mm,
taught how to take care of our brain. Like, even if you're watching some video, I have a brain on my shirt and photographs. I'm always pointing to my brain
yeah.
because I feel like you want to draw attention to things that matter. And, you could see your car, your skin, your hair, so you take better care of it
Mhm.
because it's in your awareness, but we don't see our brains,
Right.
thing that takes care of us. So my goal with everybody is just I want people to know their brain. I want
Yeah.
people to love their brain, and I want most importantly, people to use their brain.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jim. That was great. The list of 10 that you went through, listeners definitely go back and read through. And like he said, do an assessment because I think there's a lot that we can learn for ourselves personally, but I also gleaned a lot out of there for what I can do to help support my parents, right? Like you said,
Mm.
when people leave school and when they retire are key points in their lives where the activity kind of drops. So the knowledge that we have now, which is to make sure that we're still maintaining our interest in and deliberate like action towards learning new things is really important. Thank you, Jim, so much for coming on to the Asian Boss Girl podcast, sharing all of your tips. And honestly, just your story is so inspiring. So I want to thank you so much for the work that you've done in just demonstrating, like you doing what you do, showing how you turn something that could be a challenge into such an amazing superpower is truly inspiring. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Can I give a gift to everybody real quick?
Yes, please, please.
Just like there's personalized medicine based on like a genetic assessment and personalized nutrition based on like a microbiome test, we
Mhm.
created a personalized learning performance assessment in 4 minutes, and it would show you your dominant brain type. And we used
Ah,
animals to make it fun. And once you understand what your dominant brain type is, we gift you protocols for reading faster, improving your memory,
oh, that's great.
hiring, sales, everything based on brain types. So people could take this assessment. Right now, we used to use it for client, and it was a paid thing, but for your community, they could access it at mybrainanimal.com. And My Brain Animal, it's 4 minutes, multiple choice. And I realized after 3 decades of coaching, it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. And
Mm,
this will show you how you are smart and
ah,
give you protocols based on just like love languages. Everybody has a
yeah,
different way of
you're a specific
expressing
type.
love.
Yeah.
This is a way of expressing like how you learn your best.
Oh, that's great.
And I really do believe, I want to thank you for having me on the show. I've been really looking forward to this. And the person listening right now,
Mm,
in my deepest being, I believe there's a version of yourself that's patiently waiting. And the
mm,
goal is we show up for ourselves every single day until we're introduced. And, like growth sometimes can be hard and learning can be scary,
yeah.
but nothing is as scary and hard as being stuck somewhere you don't belong.
Mm,
And I feel like, you're this close to everything on your bucket list. And I'm
mm,
spreading my index fingers like a foot apart.
hmm.
And now I'm taking my index fingers, I'm putting this on my head. What's in between is
Yeah.
really the key that could get you and open up. And it's often like the treasure we seek is hidden in the work we're avoiding.
Mm,
And so I think this work will shine a spotlight and give you a sense of empowerment and
yeah.
confidence. In psychology, they have this confidence competence loop that the more competent you get at something, the more confident you are.
Mm,
And when you can learn how to read and focus and remember, you could walk into a room and meet 20 strangers and leave saying goodbye to every single one by
mm,
name. That's a different level of presence,
right,
and I
right.
feel like it could serve this entire, community. um, you change your brain, you change your life. You change your
Yes.
brain, you could change the entire world. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jim. And with that, we'll catch you all on the next episode. Bye. Before we wrap today's episode, I want to send a very special thank you and shout out to today's ABG bestie, Lauren Young from Irvine, California. Lauren, thank you so much for your support. You are a fellow OC girl, just like myself. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope that you'll enjoy all of the episodes to come.